Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for that introduction. It's actually lovely to be standing here today. 4 years ago, in a different venue, I did the opening keynote for the PHP UK conference. And it was the very first opening keynote I ever did. So it's really quite an honor to be back here, to be asked back. Thank you for having me. I just want to say thank you to the PHP UK conference for believing in me 4 years ago and having me open their conference, because I know how much work goes into organizing one of these things. The people that you see in the PHP UK shirts have been working for months tirelessly to bring you this conference. So I just want to say it's really, really lovely to be here. Hi, my name is Aral, and I'm an experienced designer. I'm not going to be talking to you about PHP today, one of those few non-PHP coding sessions. You might know this term better as user experience designer, but I feel that the term user has become redundant and unnecessary, because if you think about it, how much of our days and our modern lives are spent interacting with objects, interacting with things that people have created. We're all users, right? The user is redundant in that term. So I call myself an experienced designer, which means that I design things for people. I'm also a developer, which means that I make things, again, for people. And I don't believe that these two things are separate. I think they're both part of the same thing, what I call experience design. So basically, what I like to do is I try to make things that make people happy. Yeah. Unfortunately, what happens usually in my own interactions with things is I end up feeling frustrated and sad. Yes. Who gets angry at things here? Things that don't work, right? Angry, emotional. Right? Not just, it didn't work, but more like, why didn't you work? Right? And that's normal, because we have emotional relationships with the objects that we interact with. So now that we've shared this intimate moment, I think we're at a point where I can show you my toilet. This isn't actually my toilet. This is a toilet that I had in one of my hotel rooms. And this was my experience after having used the toilet. This is simulated, don't worry. Yeah, it's a bit too early in the morning for that. But this was my experience. As a guy, having used the toilet, I want to flush. Where's the flush? I don't know. It's definitely not there. Okay, maybe it's on the other side. You know, nope, it's not there. Maybe it's a proximity sensor. Nope, that's not working. Did they hide the flush behind the lid? No, it's not there. Oh, right, look above the counter, above my toiletry bag. That's where the flush is, right? And it doesn't even look like a flush. And if you push that in, then it flushes the toilet. Let's break this down to find out what went wrong, okay? Let's break this down. Now, notice the counter, okay, about 1/3 of the way at the top. That forms a natural barrier, grouping everything above it and everything underneath it. Look at what's close to the toilet. The toilet paper is close to it, right? So by proximity, I make an association between those two things. I know immediately, intuitively, that the toilet paper is somehow related to the toilet, even if I've never seen one before, just by the fact that they're next to each other. What's the problem? That's where the flush is, right? Completely away, grouped away with that barrier, cutting it off, so not where I would think it is related to the toilet, right? Proximity implies relation in what we're doing. So think about that when you're designing your interfaces as well, right? And when you're designing your apps, things you put together, people will immediately correlate as being related to each other, right? And as a guy, this was my view as I was using that toilet. And where's the flush? It's not even in my view. If something is out of sight, it's out of mind. When we're designing user interfaces, we call this layering, right? We try to find the features that are most important, bring them out so that they're in sight. But the features that are not as important, we layer away knowing that they will be out of sight and probably out of mind, right? So this is another toilet. This talk is not all about toilets, just because, in case you're wondering. And this was a different hotel room. And again, this toilet worked really well. You know, it's a beautiful toilet. It supported my bum. It was great. It did everything a toilet should do, right? And it had a flush. And the flush was great. It had a little, you know, little one for your number one and a bigger one for your number two. It's awesome. It's a great flush, right? But look what happened when they put the two together, okay? This is me opening the lid of the toilet, and it covers the flush, right? Toilet worked great, flush worked great. Together, they didn't work so great, right? Because they didn't think about how those two elements fit together. This is what Steve Jobs was talking about when he said, we make the whole widget. Not toilets, but about having control over the whole experience. Because an experience is only as strong, an experience is only as good as its weakest link, right? So what could be that weakest link in the applications that we create? It could be a third-party API that we don't have the source code for, right? What happens when, a third-party API that we have no control over. What happens when that API goes down? We're screwed. Do our users care that it was a third-party API that went down? No, as far as they're concerned, our app went down, right? If we use source code, if we use components for which we don't have the source code, and we can't make changes, that becomes the weakest link, right? So I travel around a lot. I was at a hotel, and I met this machine. It's a juice machine for getting juice. And when I approach objects, I approach them naively, right? I think it's a very important trait to have as a designer. I walk up to them and I go, hi, tell me about yourself. And they do. They usually do tell me how to use them, right? Here, it's pretty clear where you're supposed to put the glass, right? Where am I supposed to put the glass? That big round bit over there, right? What does that say? It doesn't speak to me, but it says, put the glass here. I'm like, yeah. And then how do I get the juice? It's pretty clear, right? We've got arrows saying, push me. All of the affordances are there. It's beautiful. So I did. I put my glass there. This was my experience. And I'm pressing it. Oh, crap. Okay, it lied to me. There I was, naive, innocent, you know, tell me how to use you. And I said, put it there. It lied to me, right? And this happens very often. So it became a little game. Where do I put the glass? Awesome. Things tell you how to use them by how they look. We call this an affordance. Right? And affordances are important. We see how important they are when we look at a platform like iOS where, you know, maybe to some degree we've gone a little overboard with skeuomorphism where we're taking the forms of things and applying them to the digital realm, right? So this, for example, looks like a key, but it's actually a skeuomorphic key because it's an electronic key. It's not a real key that you turn, right? It's not a mechanical key. It's an electronic key. How do electronic keys normally look like? They look like cards, right? Usually, with a little chip inside them, but they made it look like a key. So immediately I know that it's a key, right? And it worked really well as well. You know, this was me trying to get into my hotel room, and I insert it, and it worked. I could get in. But how is that different from a real world key? What I did when I first put it in is I tried to turn it. Because it looks like a key, it should act like a key, right? So even if turning it does nothing at all, they could have added that in because it's an expectation they've created. And that's the biggest challenge with skeuomorphism as well. When something looks like something, it should behave like that thing. And making it behave like that thing is much harder than making it look like that thing. So I was on a flight and I was having a small bottle of champagne and some chips, as you do, right? And I wanted to open the bottle of champagne. I was like, this is so cool. It's even got a cork. These guys are awesome. So I was like, this is me opening a champagne. It's gonna pop. Get ready for it. And what the fuck? What happened there? That's not what I was expecting. Never in my adult life, when I've opened a bottle of champagne, has there been another cap. You know, it's usually the cork, right? So what did they do here? you know, this is actually the bottle of champagne. Great, this would have been perfect. But no, they had to put that cork-like thing, skeuomorphic cork, on this bottle of champagne to really say, hey, it's champagne. Don't miss the fact that it's champagne, but it tricked me again, right? And these guys must have been crazy about getting us to really understand that it's champagne, to make sure that we didn't miss it, because this was the back of the cup as well. This is really champagne, okay? This is definitely champagne. Oh, that noise tells me it's time for trains, subways, and vending machines. Ticket machines. What is up with ticket machines? It's almost like every sadist in the world has a job designing ticket machines of one sort or another. This was one in Belgium. And this is a friend of mine who knows how to use it, buying tickets. So it says, tickets, train card, passes and cards, okay? Or diabolo fee. Oh, okay, that sounds interesting. Okay, I don't know what to choose. Maybe I'll get a ticket. Great, let me get a ticket. Would you like a standard ticket, a weekend ticket, a senior ticket, or would you like a large family's children? I don't know. Wow, what else can I buy here? But you know what the worst thing about it is? Do you see that thing over there on a touch screen that should never be on a touch screen? That's a mouse cursor. That sort of thing just drives me up the wall. I mean, we're not even going to talk about the color or any of the other bits of it, you know. And if you thought that that was bad, if you've been to San Francisco, if you've been on the BART, you know, until you haven't seen bad, okay? So I was in San Francisco, and I went to get somewhere to meet my friend. So I didn't know how to use it. But everywhere, on the barriers, everywhere, it said, get Clipper, right? So I didn't want to ask someone how to use the BART. I mean, I've been on subways, right? I was like, I know what I need to do. Get Clipper. It told you everywhere. Get Clipper. And it's so easy. You load it, you tag it, you go, right? It's awesome. It's the American way. It's great. So I was like, I just need to get a Clipper and my life will be awesome. So I looked around for machines where I can get Clipper. And I saw these guys. Look, and Clipper. Look at that. Look, do you see that? Clipper. I was like, yes, the path has been enlightened in front of me. I just need to walk it. So I went to the machine. The machine was actually quite delightful to use for a ticket machine. So I mean, that rarely happens. And I got my card, right? And I went up to the barriers and, whoa, why isn't it working? So I went up to the woman who was behind the counter, waited in line. I was like, I got a Clipper, but it's not working. She's like, that's not a Clipper. The Clipper. Like, it's not a Clipper. That's not a Clipper. And she was right. She was right. Because anyone can plainly see that this is not a Clipper machine. This is a Muni machine, right? That's just clear as light of day. I mean, I don't know what I was thinking. I must have been high or something, right? I did not see that distinction. And then so I started looking for the Clipper machines in the same station, right? And it's apparently this, where you can see the only Clipper signage is that tiny little card at the top, okay? And at this point, I kind of knew I was going to have a bad day, right? Looking at this machine. I mean, you can see how things have been bordered and there's instructions everywhere. Let me take you through how to use this machine, because I don't think any of you are sadistic enough to actually come up with it. For one thing, there is a schedule of fares. So the first thing you do when you start using this machine is you look through this manual schedule of fares and you find the fare for where you're going to go to. I think I was going to 24th Street and I picked my fare, which is 175. And then you, as the human, remember that number, okay? So already the machine has started making you work for it instead of the machine working for you, right? It's using your memory register to store that, because apparently memory is not cheap or something. I don't know. All right, so I've got it, 175 in my head. And then I looked at the machine. Of course, they don't want to make it too easy for you. Like, you know, lining those up would just be too easy. There'd be no difficulty to this game whatsoever. You'd get bored and go home, right? But they don't want to do that. So I was like, okay, I guess I need to press one of these. But how do I start? How do I start? How you start something is really, really important, telling people how they start. And the only thing I could find was this touch card on disk to write. But I have a slight existential problem here because I don't have the card. So it's like a chicken and egg thing, right? So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to go back and ask the woman. So I waited in line again. I got to the front. I was like, I'm really sorry, but so do I need to buy a card from you that I refill from there? And by this point, she's looking at me like I'm rather daft, right? She's like, no, just put your money in and that'll start the process, but nowhere does it say that, right? And then it'll give you a card. I'm like, okay, all right, so I go back to this thing, and by the way, I mean, it has a lot of information there for you. It tells you tickets and magnets don't mix, and it's got this big magnet. Great, that's really good to know. I just had a lot of magnets in my pocket. Thank you for saving me from that. So you put your money in to begin, right? So I did. I put $1, and this is what it said. It said cash inserted $1, minimum ticket value $175, which suited me just fine because my ticket cost $175, what I had in my head. I've still got it in my head. So I put another $1 in, right? Awesome. And then it said, wow, you got $2. Okay. Now, my problem is, I want a ticket, apparently, that costs $175. And think about it. I'm not thinking in the problem domain about where I want to go, a ticket to somewhere. No, I want a $175 ticket. Okay, great. How do you think I go from $2 to $175? How do I get my ticket, which is what I really want to do? You won't be able to come up with this, seriously. This is how you do it. You press the subtract 5-cent button as many times as it takes to get down to $175. And then at the end, once you've gone through this whole process, it goes and gives you your ticket. And it's like a lottery win. It's like these jackpots, right? It's like ding, 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 you won! Yes! Here's your ticket. You're awesome. You beat the game. Wow. So, that was the subway. What about the train? I was on a train recently in first class here in the UK because I wanted to plug my laptop in. One of the reasons that you go to first class in the UK, if there are people from Scandinavian countries, you're probably going, what? You do that everywhere. I don't know why you're saying that in like a semi-German accent, but so this was my experience. There's my MacBook adapter, and I'm about to plug it in. Now, you know what's coming. Yeah. Oh, okay. All right, that didn't quite work, right? Of course, it's very difficult to keep a determined geek down because I was traveling with an extension cable, right? They didn't get me that time. But what's the problem here? You can see that the table works great. It didn't collapse or anything. You can see the plug works great, but they didn't think about how they go together. Again, like that toilet. But this wasn't the worst experience I had on the train. The worst experience came when I was going to leave the train, and I was stuck. I was at the door, and I couldn't leave the train because the door wouldn't open. I didn't know how to open this train door. This is why. This is how you open that train door, okay? When the door becomes unlocked automatically, you lower the window, you put your arm out the window, and you open the door. I was seriously stuck until I saw this sign. I was like, that's okay, I'm stuck on this train. I'm gonna have wonderful adventures and meet some amazing people. So you might be thinking, my gosh, what sort of idiot designs something like this, right? What horrible design. But wait up. There was a time when this was excellent design. There was a time when this was awesome design. When? This was an old train, right? There was a time when this train did not have automatically locking doors. Now, what happens if a train doesn't have automatically locking doors and you accidentally, because it's easy to do, open the door and you step outside? You have a bad day, right? You have a bad day, and that day probably lasts for a while. So, there was a time before automatically locking doors that this was awesome. Because if the result of a gesture is going to be so catastrophic that you might die, or in our case, lose data, which is the same thing for us, right? Then you want to make that as hard as possible for people to do. So this was great design. What happened? Things changed, right? The circumstances changed, the context changed. It got a new feature, automatically locking doors. What they should have done at that point is to review every other feature and how it relates to it, because every feature affects every other feature in the applications that you're building, in the products that you're building. They didn't do that. At that point, they stopped iterating and they were lazy about it, and hence we got this farce that we have. Great design transformed into ridiculous design with just the addition of one feature, okay? And you see this in a lot of places. I mean, I was in a bathroom and there were these faucets that press on, auto off. Okay, perfect. But they changed some of them. Press on, auto off. Nope, that's a lift. You know, they didn't change the label. And we see this so often in applications. So that's a bit of laziness. There's laziness, and then there's really not respecting the user's time. This was a vending machine, and I think it was at the airport. And I wanted to get some water. So I walked up to it to find out how much the water was so I could put my money in, right? There was a problem. Do you see the problem? There are no prices on it at all. None of the items had prices. I'm like, how do I know how much money to put in? Ah, they had thought of that. Yes, on the sticker it says, press selection for price. Now, that's a bit succinct. I realized that what that meant was, you look at a bottle, like let's say it's on B3, you want to find out how much the bottle at B3 costs. You go over there and you press B3, and it shows you the price. They got so inspired by mystery meat navigation from the early days of the web that they implemented this interface. It's amazing, right? Instead of telling you immediately at a glance how much everything costs, if you want to find out 3 things, let's say you have a limited amount of change on you, you'd have to enter each one's value separately, right? Very clear that they don't respect the user's effort. And that's a sad thing. So, I think we're coming up on one of my favorite parts of the presentation, which I call wrong on so many levels. Elevators. Wow, elevators are the gift that keeps giving for a user experience talk. They really are. That first elevator that you saw with the blinking lights where every light was blinking, I think that was in the Netherlands or Belgium again. And I mean, the guy or the woman who designed it must have had a blink fetish of some sort, because every light on that elevator blinks. And what do you lose when every light blinks? You lose the reason that the current level blinks, right? Or the current level comes on as you're going up to show you progress. You kind of go, oh my gosh, am I going to die? Is something going wrong here, right? I'm not even going to talk about this one. This was in the States. Wow. But what's the problem? I don't get this with elevators because, you know, we've solved the elevator problem, I'd like to think. You know, I might be a bit naive about this, but over the ages, we've iterated a solution to the elevator control panel problem that just works, right? What is it? Buttons that look like buttons so that you know that you want to press them, right? That's number one. Buttons that are arranged according to the arrangement of the floor, so it's intuitive. If you press a button that's higher than the one that's lower, you know you're going to a higher floor. It's amazing how that works, right? So this is amazingly intuitive. And yet, we seem to have a problem accepting this solution. In Lithuania, I ran into this lift. That is a control panel for a lift. It's not some sort of weird Cylon calculator. But it actually has a calculator keypad, and you can't see it too well in this picture, but it was shiny and glassy, you know, and what does that remind me of? My phone. So what do I immediately know how to do? I know how to use this. It's like my phone, so I tap it, right? So this was me trying to go up to my room. Tap. Oh, nothing. Tap. Ah, nothing. Tap. Oh, it doesn't look like a button, but it's a button. I need to push it. Okay, fine, I can live with that. It did lie to me. Coming back down. Oh, that was interesting. What do I press? I guess 0. Let me press 0 and see what happens. Error! We took something without an error condition and added one to it. Elevators do not, by design, have an error condition. You cannot go to a floor that does not exist. I mean, but look at what they did. They even have a minus sign and a decimal point. What are you supposed to do, math? Well, I want to go to floor 2, but I think I'll do that as 5 minus 3. Yes. Who's on floor 3.2 today? I don't know. Maybe there was a floor 3.2 and I missed it. I missed the game. And I ran into this friend again in Wales a few months ago, and in another hotel, and this is what they'd done to it, though. I love this. This is what they'd done to the same elevator. Do you see what they've done? This is genius. They hacked it, okay? They hacked it to remove all the noise, right? Because the only buttons that really make sense are the floors that you can go to, right? So they removed all the noise by hacking it themselves. I don't know if you can see it. They actually even gaffer taped over the display as well. But of course, those buttons are still there. I checked, right? The buttons are still there. So if you actually press it, there's error, but you can't see it. That's error happening, okay? Over there. And all because, for some reason, they didn't go with the conventions and the expectations that people have for an elevator control panel, right? And expectations are really important. Meeting expectations are really important because people have them, right? And all of this stuff is really important too. It really impacts our lives because we have these experiences day in and day out. And to see why it's really important, let's go back to the beginning, to the very beginning, where we all start out helpless. Helpless and completely in the control of other people, right? Who look after us, take care of us, etc. And we start seeing that there are people out there who are in control, who can affect things, who can change things, who know everything, it seems, when you're a baby, when you're a kid, right? And we start seeing these people as super people. And somewhere between puberty and extreme old age, we become these people, right? We become this guy and his female counterpart. And what happens when we've gone through all of those stages, we've gone through puberty, for goodness sake. And just to get to a point where we can change the world, we can affect change, right? We're in control, this happens, right? What the heck is that? Is that some other language? Is it, like, what? And when I see a control panel like this, which is for a washing machine, I feel like that little baby again, but trapped in the body of an adult. I feel enfeebled. I'm bothered. I get frustrated. I get angry. Be bothered. Being bothered is the first step. If you don't notice the problems around you, if you internalize them, even worse, if you see them as a rite of passage, we're never going to be able to change things, right? And that's what we do. We get a system that's very hard to use, and because of the nature of us as geeks, we see that as a challenge. We work through it. We find out how it works, even though it's ridiculously hard and should never have been that hard. And then some of us see it as a rite of passage, right? I've gone through all that crap. And then a noob comes over, and you're like, hey, noob. And he's like, this is really complicated. That is because you were a noob, right? No. That's the point where you go, yeah, you know what? It is overly complicated. Yeah, I spent half a year trying to figure this out. But you're right. It is overly complicated, and we should make it simpler. Okay? Just because I went through it doesn't mean you have to go through it. So, washing machines, bane of my existence. So I thought, you know what? How would I design it? Let me think about my process. What do I need to do, right? So what I normally do is I have a lot of black stuff. I don't know if it comes with being a designer. I don't know. But I separate all my black stuff out and all the whites, because I've kind of realized over the years to separate the colored from the whites, because otherwise you get pink stuff. It just seems to happen. And then I put some detergent and I put some softener in there, and then I turn this dial from 0 to 4. Why do I turn it from 0 to 4? Goodness knows. I had an ex-girlfriend. She said, you know, use program 4, it works. And that was it. She actually tore this out of the thing for me and said, cool. Why don't I care? Because I'm not interested in the act of washing clothes. Washing clothes interests me less than most things in the world. What I'm interested in is having clean clothes. I don't care how I get there. There could be, for all I care, little treadmills and hamsters running on them in my washing machine, licking my clothes clean. That's fine. I don't care how the machine works. I'm interested in clean clothes, not washing clothes. So I put program 4 on, and it says to me something. I mean, I don't know what it says. I think it's happy. There's a happy smiley face. I don't know what the snake is. And maybe there's promise of pie later. I don't know. I don't know. All I know is I need to press this button, and it starts the machine, right? That's what it does, and it's always done it, and I'm happy with that, right? Of course, I always forget that I also have to set the dryer, which for mine means keeping your finger on that button for like a minute, okay? Until it slowly counts up. It's like, I'm here all day. I don't know what you're complaining about. It's fine. It's fine. I'm enjoying this. Touch me longer. Yeah. Wow. How would I design it? This is the washing machine of today, right? And look, it exposes all of its inner complexity to us, all of those control panels. I have to make all the decisions. Why? It's the expert at washing clothes. I'm not. Why am I programming it? It should be telling me how to wash the clothes, right? And ideally, it should just be giving me clean clothes. And it's not just the machine. I have this whole process around it. I sort my clothes. I go and buy my softener and my detergent. And I need to know which ones those are and how much to put of those, right? No. How I would do it? I've got my clothes sorted, right? So someone who knows how to wash clothes, not me, would know how each of those batches should be washed best, right? Why don't we give that responsibility to the machine? All right, because that's what it should be doing. It's the expert, right? So maybe those are my cottons, those are my delicates. Maybe at some point I have a kid and baby care stuff, right? I did do a little bit of research. Apparently that's a big category of stuff, and that needs to be washed differently. But do I care about how it's washed? No, it needs to know that, right? What about this softener and the detergent, how much to put in? If it knows what kind of clothes there are there, it, being the expert, will know how much detergent and softener to use for each one of those. Let's put those inside the machine and make it an implementation detail as well, right? At which point, we don't need that control panel anymore because the machine knows how to wash the clothes, right? So then we get this sort of a device, right? It looks more like a chest of drawers than a washing machine. Why? Because it's focused on my actual goal, not on what it does. What it does is it washes clothes. That's not what I care about. What I care about are clean clothes, and that's a machine that's focused on giving you clean clothes. How does it work? You turn one of them on. Okay, and it washes your clothes, and they're clean. How does it wash it? I don't care. I don't care one bit, right? So we went from this, okay, which it exposes its inner complexity, makes me do all the work, to this, where I don't know how it works, but it does all the work for me, right? And really, if I was splurging, maybe I'd have one for my dirty clothes and one for my clean clothes. I'd put them in the clean drawer. It would come out the dirty drawer. No, I'll do it the other way. That's a better way of washing. I'll put them in the dirty drawer, it'll come out the clean drawer, right? Awesome. In fact, I could mass produce this. This still counts as design. If I was building it just for me, right, and I didn't have to mass produce it, maybe I'd go a step further, right? What do I do when I come home? I take off my t-shirt, I throw it on the ground, at some point I pick it up, right, and hopefully, when it's become a pile, and then I put it into the washing machine. So maybe I would optimize for that. Maybe I'd put those as holes on the ground, the different places. When I come home, I throw my dirty stuff in there, it comes out in my clean drawer. When I go into my room, I pull out one of the drawers, I have clean clothes, and that would make me feel like a super person, right? That would be awesome. I call this the superhero effect. Any object which can make the technology invisible and the experience indistinguishable from magic gives you superpowers. Right? And we already have so many superpowers. We are basically cyborgs, right? Each one of us are cyborgs. We are not necessarily, our physical abilities are not extended beyond normal human limitations by mechanical elements built into the body, but we are extending our human abilities by various elements that we carry along with us, right? And by the way, that's of course RoboCop. It's always better to be a cyborg than a robot because, as we all know, robots can't do stairs, right? So we win. But why am I a cyborg? Well, I have a watch. I'm wearing a watch right now. And that gives me the superhuman ability to tell exact time. I'm wearing contact lenses. superhuman ability of perfect sight, right? But this device, more than anything, gives me superhuman abilities. And many, many, many superhuman abilities, right? Objects like this have value not because of what they are, as pieces of jewelry, for example, but because of what they enable us to do. I saw this sign at a media school in Oslo, in central Oslo, said the real danger is not that computers will begin to think like men, but that men will begin to think like computers. And I think we do this today to a degree, and we need to stop doing that. We need to remember why we're doing what we're doing, right? And we need to focus on the humans that are going to be using the things that we make. And that's hard. That's interaction design, that's experience design, and that's hard. It's hard because humans are hard. Humans are unpredictable. Humans are emotional, right? Even when you have two humans talking to each other with a shared culture in the same room, they might be thinking, well, does that person like me? Was that sarcastic? Are they trying to make a point? I don't know. We're constantly evaluating each other. We're constantly misunderstanding each other in addition to understanding each other. But what if we removed some of those cues that we have to work with, like the visual cues, right? What if we were on the phone? How much easier is it to misunderstand someone when you're on the phone? Because you can't see them anymore, right? You can only hear them. Let's take it one step further. How much easier is it to misunderstand someone when you're just texting them, or when you're on email, or when you're on a forum? Flame wars, right? They erupt. Why? Because we're losing humanity at every step. We can only judge what they're saying, their tone, from their text. So what do? We try to inject some humanity back with emoticons and smiley faces and say, hey, I'm just playing with you, you know? Now, to understand how hard it is to do experience design and interaction design, remove one of the humans from that equation altogether and replace him or her with a computer. That's hard. Human to human is hard. We're trying to create objects that speak to humans via proxy. We've lost visual cues. We've lost oral cues. We've lost humanity, right? So when I talk about design, I'm not talking about being able to draw a straight line. You know, you hear that from people. I'm not a designer. I can't draw a straight line. I'm not talking about pixel pushing. Goodness knows I'm not talking about prettifying things. Someone actually asked me to do that once. Can you prettify this? No, I freaking cannot. Right? It's not about how it looks. It's about how it functions as well. It's not about this stuff. What's design about? It's about psychology, neuroscience, linguistics, sociology, philosophy. It's about understanding humans so that we can design for humans. So before I did this talk, I asked my Twitter followers to send in some tweets about experiences they've had, good and bad. And I got this one, which really stood out. He says, I'm so used to broken UX that I don't try the obvious because I naturally assume the obvious will not work. That's a pretty sad state to be in, right? And he goes on to say, note that I wasn't joking. When I rarely try something obvious and it works, I feel like I've discovered an Easter egg. We need to change this. This shouldn't be the norm, right? Because experiences matter. Our whole lives are a string of experiences. If you think of experiences like the grains of sand in an hourglass, each experience a grain, they're the experiences that are waiting to be had. There's that experience we're having right now that we're sharing. And then there are all of the experiences that form that pile at the bottom. Those are our memories. Those are our lives. And the quality of those experiences, whether they're with things or whether they're with people, determine the quality of our mornings, our evenings, our days, our weeks, our months, our years, our lives. So experiences matter. And we don't need more things. The world doesn't need more things. We have a whole lot of things. We need things that work better. Beautiful experiences. And it's not always that hard either. And it's not always what you think that makes something stand out for someone or creates an emotional relationship with someone. So someone else sent this. My favorite thing about Gmail by far, and this photo, this dialogue in Gmail that says, did you mean to attach files when you write, I have attached and you forget? This little polite dialogue that says, hey, you said you did you? This is her favorite thing about Gmail by far. Now think about what a complex application spread around thousands and tens of thousands of servers, right? Think about all the complex engineering that goes into Gmail. What's her favorite thing? This little piece of humanity, this little helpful dialog box. So we do get it wrong mostly though. This is another site. And I'm not even gonna go, you're on this site and you wanna buy a pipe, all right? You wanna buy one of these rods. Let's see what happens. My mouse is going over the menu, okay? I'm like, whoa, okay, all right, I need to get past this menu really quickly because this is scary, okay? That's fine, let's just don't look at the menu, it's fine. So go really fast. I click buy now, and what does buy now mean? It means buy now, unless if it means choose the color. Buy now, of course, here means choose the diameter, right? I'd really like to buy this now, which means review your order, right? And then finally, you press checkout. That wasn't the worst thing about this. The worst thing was here. Do you see that? Add £45.76 for free delivery. That made no sense to me whatsoever. I thought initially they were asking me to pay them £45.76 in order to get free delivery, in which case it kind of does not, it defeats the purpose, right? Apparently what they meant is I need to buy that amount more of stuff, which I only realized after giving this talk twice. And one more thing, guys. Your app shouldn't look like your database just threw up. Okay? If it does, think about that in your heads. If it does, right, change it. There's something wrong. Why? It's like Scott Hanselman says. I love this quote. There are a finite number of keystrokes left in your hands before you die, right? Remember the hourglass. Respect the user's efforts. That user might be you one day, and probably is. Here are people who didn't do that. This is another ticket machine, this time in Sweden. And wow, okay. Where do I start? It has so many different parts. Let's see, they've got a lot of documentation on it, a good sign that it's not intuitive. They've written basically a manual on there, right? It tells you what cards you can use with it, what cards you cannot use with it. That's always great, right? You gotta be comprehensive in what you do, no slacking, right? It's got a screen, and the people who built this were aware, as is often the case, that this was not working, right? Why? Because they put a phone inside of it. Okay, so you can call for help. So some poor sod in a dark room somewhere has to take calls from drunk people at all hours of the day because they couldn't design this right. This makes me feel like that little baby again, right? But trapped in the body of an adult. This is what it looks like in Sweden. So maybe that's just the way you can do it. Maybe there's that much complexity. No, this does one thing. It sells you a train ticket from that station to the airport. That's all it does. You can't even buy a train ticket to another station with that machine, okay? This is what the same machine looks like in Oslo. Does the same thing. You know how you use it? You see that slot over there? You take your credit card that you already have in your pocket, you slide it, and you walk on your train. That's it. That's it, you're on your train. And on the other side, you just slide your card at the gate and you walk off. And that makes me feel like a superhero. That's how life should be, right? And there's no UI. Sometimes the best UI is no UI. Here's an Oslovian using it. There we go. Boom, walked off, right? On the other end, boom, and you're off. And this man feels like a superhero at that point, I hope. I don't know, maybe he's just going to work. But how can two experiences be so different, right? The one in Sweden, the one in Oslo. Isn't there common sense? No. Common sense is a myth. It's not just a myth, it's a very dangerous myth. It lets us be lazy. What we need is focus. Focus on a very important thing, on providing quality, not quantity, right? Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, the author of The Little Prince, has a quote about this that I love. He says, perfection is achieved not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing left to take away. Remember this when you're building your applications. And this focus has to be the focus of everyone, not just your user experience consultant or this designer that you hire in to prettify things. Please don't do that. Great design is not the symptom of a great designer. Great design is a symptom of a design-led organizational structure and development process, right? You have to design the organization, as Whitney was saying, before you design the product, right? Or else it's worthless. Design thinking has to trickle down from the top. It can't go like this. Your designer or your developer saying, hey, CEO person, we need to focus more on design. Yeah. No, it doesn't work that way, right? It has to come from the top down. Unless the organization is committed, then there won't be the budgets, there won't be the time scales, there won't be the development processes that will result in great design. An example, iDVD. Mike Evangelists' company was purchased by Apple and to create the product known as iDVD back then. And when he went in with his team to have a meeting with Steve Jobs, they had prepared all of these artifacts, right? Wireframes and prototypes and documentation and manuals showing every feature that they thought should be in it. Steve Jobs, according to Mike, walked into the room, ignored everything they had, walked up to the board, and drew a rectangle. He said, that's the window. He drew a button inside the window. He said, that's the burn button. What you do is you drag a video onto the window and you press the burn button and you get your DVD. And that is iDVD. And that is what they built. And that's the sort of focus I'm talking about. And that's the sort of focus that's only possible if it comes from the top down. Otherwise, you don't have the authority to have that sort of focus. You might have the responsibility, but without the authority, it's worthless. There's no button design. It's not something we do in committee. It's not democratic, right? Great design is not about sparing your feelings in the team. It's about hurting your feelings now so that we can all celebrate tomorrow when we have an amazing product and feel great about ourselves because we've created something amazing together, right? Great design is about saying no, 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 over and over when it hurts, right? Even when it's painful, not yes, especially when it's painful, right? These people who created this machine in Oslo, they weren't just rock star designers. They had to make really painful decisions. Like what? They compromised on security. What do you not see there? You don't see me going like this, and then, oh, my PIN number. No, again, okay. Do I feel like Superman at that point? No, that's just life mediocre as we know it, right? They said, no, we want this to be swipe. So, the bank, when you don't take PIN numbers, says, okay, sure. If there's any fraud, it's on your shoulders. So the design decision here wasn't how many pixels should we make this, will it have a rounded corner? The design decision here was, we're gonna lose 100,000 pounds or several 100,000 pounds. Is that okay? Yes. That was a design decision, right? It wasn't about what color a pixel is going to be, right? They thought outside the screen. That screen does nothing, right? Nothing at all. They thought outside of it. They moved the features outside of it. And they thought about context and ergonomics. Most importantly, they worried about the right thing. They focused on their users' needs, not their own needs, right? And if you don't do that, really bad crap happens. That we start, we see some of this stuff on the web, right? Like this. I mean, you might be thinking, well, that's the Daily Mail. You deserve it for going there, right? But yeah, I'm at their site, an important message from Mail Online. Ooh, exciting. Dear iPhone user, how do they know? Have you downloaded our new iPhone app? No. We think it's a much better view. Okay, great, fuck off. I don't want this, right? Right? I call this a door slam because that's how it feels, right? And these door slams are gonna get louder and louder as we go because everyone's doing it, right? Like everybody's doing it. Where do you want to open this link? I'll tell you where I want to open that link, okay? Over here. Have you tried the iPhone app? No. Get the iPhone. I don't want to. Get the app. No. Go away. Switch. No. I don't want this. You need the app to read all the answers, you evil fuckers. Door slams are a cancer on the web. Don't do this, people, especially since there are ways of doing it that are not intrusive, right? Look at lanyards. They've got this little non-modal, that's the key word here, right? Little bit at the top that says, hey, you know, we've got these apps on all of these platforms. Do you want to try them out? You know, and you can totally ignore it if you don't want to, right? And, you know, this is just one example. But there are a lot of things that we're doing that we should probably be reviewing what we're doing on the web today in 2013, right? You know what I'm going with this? You know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah?
Savior of the universe.
People, it's 2013. We can let this go now, all right? This should never happen, okay? I did Flash for 10 years. I'm over it. You can get over it, okay? It's over. They're not developing it for mobile platforms anymore. It's dead on the web. There is no mobile web. There is just the web, right? If they're not developing it for mobile, it's dead. And I wrote an article about how it was dead a few years ago when they announced that, so let's let it go. That's not some of the worst stuff out there, though. There's this crap. I mean, if one fake iOS navigation bar doesn't cut it, use two, because that might just fix your problems, right? What is this? This is a website skinned to look like a native app. There is never a reason to do this, okay? If you've done this, I feel for you. It was probably not your fault. Just go home, take a shower. It's a new day tomorrow, okay? There's never a reason to do this. Why? It's horrendous. You are creating expectations that you cannot meet. You're faking components that will not behave like the native components. And plus, you don't need to do that. And if I go to the site on my Windows phone, it'll still look like that. And that's not native on my Windows phone. Don't do this. Bad, bad. And then don't take the next step, which like Adobe will tell you to take, right? Don't then go, I have a web app. Let me wrap it with this amazing one-click experience on PhoneGap so that I can put it as a native app on all of my various mobile devices, all 4,000 Android ones. Don't do that. It was a crap experience. When you wrap it with PhoneGap and it can run on thousands of different mobile devices natively, it'll be thousands of crap experiences on mobile devices. Okay? Don't do that. Right? Why? We need to optimize the experience for every device. If you're going to support a device, support it well. Nobody wants your middle-of-the-road experience on their device, right? Why? Because someone will come out with a better native experience on that platform, and they will use that, right? You're not the only player in town. If you had no competitors, fine. That's great, but you have competitors. And you don't want to die a death of 1,000 deaths. You don't want to die a death of 1,000 cuts, as the Chinese say, right? Death of 1,000 deaths sounds a bit more, ooh. Okay. And there are places for PhoneGap. Don't get me wrong, I'm not hating on PhoneGap. I was hating on their marketing earlier because they were like, hey, just take a web app, wrap it up, and you have native apps. They've changed that now on their site. They just say mobile apps. What's a good use case for this? Well, we need to examine a few things, right? Where on the documents to applications spectrum does my application fall? If it's a document, if it's a collection of documents, that's what the web was created for. That's where the web has won. You hear that at web conferences, right? Yes, documents, it's a web app, right? Forget wrapping it up or anything. It's a web app. The more content-centric it is, the more it's fit for the web, right? But it's a spectrum. It's a gradient. When you get towards the middle, maybe it makes sense to progressively enhance some of the capabilities of your web app, right? With native features. Great. Go hybrid there if you need to, right? If you need to, that's fine. If you have applications that are really behavior-centric, the web is not for that right now, right? No cross-platform UI is for that right now because you can't support the native culture. So there, maybe you might consider a native application as you get to this side. There's another consideration, though. Is your app immersive or non-immersive? If it's immersive, like a game, then by all means, if it's performant enough in JavaScript, wrap it up in PhoneGap and create a native version of it. Sure, do that. That's fine. But if it uses native components and you're just simulating those native components, that's a bad experience, right? So this isn't a religious debate. This is a design decision like anything else. Just know your medium so you can make an educated decision. If you want to hear more about that, I wrote 10,000 words on it, and I asked the lovely people at Smashing Magazine to make my chapter available for free, since this is such an issue for a lot of people. So you can just go to the link is /web versus native, which is a horrible way of framing it, but that's what we're saying, web versus native. It's a stupid argument. There is no argument. It's a spectrum, right? It's a spectrum of documents to applications, a spectrum of immersive to non-immersive applications. And then one final thing that please, 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 why do we do this? It's a very current, very new phenomenon. Why are we hiding our content behind closed silos when the web is open? Right? How many times I can't count the number of times in the last few weeks that I've gotten links to things that people have written themselves that they choose to voluntarily hide behind a closed silo instead of put on the open web. Why do we do this? Right? Why are we voluntarily taking away a lot of our rights? Why do I have to log in to read something on the web? That's not how it is on the web, right? And remember, worry about the right thing, and you will sidestep a lot of these issues, right? If you're thinking about your user's experience, you'll sidestep a lot of these issues. And you might be saying, but what about our business's needs, Aral? It's all nice, it's all hippie, it's all 60s. What about our business's needs? Great design in the age of user experience, which is what we're living in, is your business plan, right? Of the people who made these remote controls, one understands that. Can you tell which one? Does it stand out somehow? Does it actually use user experience to differentiate itself as a differentiating factor? And process matters. This can't happen in a vacuum, right? Design and development are facets of the same thing. Design leads development, right? Initially, we make assumptions about stuff. That's what design is. We can call it any fancy word we want. We're just pulling stuff out of our asses, right? Initially, we're like, we think this is how it's going to be. There might be some research, etc., but we're just estimating. We're just guessing, right? Only when we start building something do we start to learn about what we're building, and then the development informs the design. So if you don't have this cyclical process, if you can't iterate over this process, then you have a broken process. And of course, we test in between to get feedback as well, right? We design, we test because it's cheap. We develop, we test, and we keep doing that. All right, and we do this in 2 weeks, not 2 years. You do it in 2 years, you pretty much have waterfall. You do it in 2 weeks and you iterate, you pretty much have agile in terms of how much it really matters, the core of it, right? But there's one thing we still miss out, even if we're at this point, and that's the most important thing, your design vision. Your design doesn't come out of anywhere, right? It's not about marketing surveys. You have to have a strong vision for a product that doesn't exist, that needs to exist because it fits some need that you've identified, right? Your design comes out of that. You test, and then you filter the results of that test through your vision. You don't just take what everyone tells you and implement it, right? And then you develop, and then you test, and then you filter, and you do this every 2 weeks. And there you have a process that will lead you to what we call usable, the beginning of where user experience begins, right? Where it's functional. And we can go beyond that. This was my first app for scanning barcodes, and if the barcode existed online for a book, you could read it. But what happens if the internet is slow? It says, hey, in just a few seconds, all will be revealed. I'm checking if they have it, okay? Did they have it? Did they have it? But the internet connection is slow. So it starts going, oh, well, okay, maybe it's taking a little longer. It's starting to introspect a little bit. It's reacting to the context. Oh, okay, this isn't making me look good. You know, it's empathizing a little bit there. And then you might be getting frustrated at this point, but he's in tears. He's having a worse day than you are, right? And it's not even his fault. The internet connection is slow, right? And in the end, he just says, okay, didn't work, right? What is the naive version of this? An indeterminate progress bar, right? What does that say? Yeah, I'm getting it for you. Yeah, that's great, that's great, that's great. And then what happens at the end? Well, it's just saying, yeah, I'm getting it for you, I'm getting it for you. It doesn't change, it doesn't adapt, right? This doesn't mean build Clippy into your applications, okay? But it does mean that you will need empathy in what you do. Feathers, another app that I did for sending tweets with little decorations. and creating ASCII art and Unicode art, right? When you're typing, the little bird turns green. It doesn't tell you how many letters are left until you can do something about it. Because if it tells me 120 letters, I can't do anything. I can't plan ahead. 10, either way, or 12, I can, right? And before that, it just turns green. It's kind of cute, right? When you tap it, flaps its wings. Nothing special, right? But it's fun. It adds a bit of character, right? Objects have character. But also, not just that. The custom keyboard behaves exactly like the iPhone's custom keyboard, right? The difference between almost and exactly, so that that cursor follows, the overlay follows your finger as you go from key to key, took me about 2 weeks. But those details matter. And people notice those details. It got featured by Apple, right, in their US store, which is just based on the user experience. People call it joyful, adorable, fell in love with, fun, fell in love with, not, it works, I use it, that's great, right? And yet we get the fundamentals wrong over and over again. Samsung gave me a phone to try out a while back. I turned it on, first thing, no SIM card or phone is turned off. How does that happen? How does that happen? Guys, I'm going to go about 5 minutes over, just so you know. It happens if you don't see hardware and software as inseparable, right? If you have different teams, then for the team that was writing that error message, it kind of made sense. What are the error conditions? Well, this is the only reason, like, if that happens, then that happens, right? In the age of experiences, okay, that doesn't cut it. The age of features is over. We can't settle for mediocrity. And mediocrity is everywhere. Mistakes are awesome. Mistakes are learning experiences, right? Stopping at good enough, stopping at mistakes isn't, right? And these things add up. I was at Crawley Station recently, and the ATM was not in order, right? It wasn't working. The toilets were out of order. There was no catering on the train. Same station, same day, right? So it was really great that I couldn't withdraw money and that I couldn't buy a drink because I couldn't go have a piss later. So it was great, right? But mediocrity is cumulative, right? It creates a culture of mediocrity if we accept it. And in fact, there's an economy of mediocrity out there. So you can disregard everything I've told you. You can go out there and you can make a whole bunch of money, right, in mediocrity. So don't get me wrong. Your decision is whether or not you want to do that, or whether or not you want to make that money creating awesome stuff, right? Because laziness, fear, and dishonesty are what lead to mediocrity in products, right? So this was a faucet in a bathroom somewhere, and it said, warning, very hot water. May I draw your attention to the fact that there's only one faucet? That's not a warning. That's telling me I'm going to burn my hand, right? Don't use warnings as a design solution, right? And you see it everywhere. This was a different one. I just saw it. What is it with faucets anyway? I mean, look at this, right? That's cold, ice cold over there. That is blisteringly warm over there. What do I want? Lukewarm. How do I do it, right? In the past, maybe you would have stoppered that and filled it up, but that's at a public toilet, right? And if that's not bad enough for you, if you think that gives too easy a time for users, check this out. Make it so that it goes off the moment you let it go, right? And put another one there so that they have no... But then, of course, sometimes you just find one where it's so clear. Oh, there's the lever. I can turn it on and off. I can probably adjust. That's so cool, right? So sometimes when you see something that's so obvious and you use it and, okay, yeah, maybe that's not how you turn it on. How do you turn it on then? All right, it's not working. Damn. Oh, you press it. Okay. There's laziness, and then there's evil. This was my Apple TV. You have already purchased this item. Would you like to buy it again? I never thought of that. Thank you. don't be evil. And you can't really talk about evil without talking about Ryanair. So here's an experience on the Ryanair website, right? Here, I mean, actually, this is them being really nice, right? Because here they're asking you your country of residence. Why? Maybe they want to make the experience so much better for you, localize it, internationalize it. They're culturally sensitive people, you know. They want to give you a great experience. Not really. What they're asking you there, if you could read the bit before it, is whether or not you want to buy insurance, travel insurance. And the answer no, of course, lives where no normally lives, between Latvia and Lithuania. This isn't bad design. This is awesome design. It just happens to be evil, right? It's there to trick you. If you want to learn more about this stuff, go to darkpatterns.org, right? And we can do so much better to create delightful experiences. This little sugar dispenser. You take one of the spoons and look what happens. It opens up. It says, take the sugar. And then you take the sugar, and then you put the spoon back, and it closes. It says, and it's awesome. It's thinking about your whole process, right? So, in closing, I've been talking to you about how I feel that objects should make technology invisible and make the experience magical as much as possible, right? So I got the chance to present at TED at London last year because of a hack that I did on a boat in about 18 hours in Cannes, as you do. And I got to present it there when it won the Hack Day at this TV conference called MIP TV. I just want to show you that. So that's your TV screen on the right, okay? And on the left, you can see the screen of my phone. I'm at home watching TV, something interesting comes on, and I want to share it with my friends, right? Really quickly, I want to tweet it or Facebook it or whatever, right? So there's my phone on the left, and there's a TV screen that I'm watching on the right. So I just wave at it so it knows that I'm there. Something interesting comes online, and I grab it, I hold it in my hand, and I transfer it to my phone with my finger, okay? So again, in case you didn't see that, right? I want something on there. I grab it, I hold it in my hand, I transfer it to my phone. So I just grab what's on the screen, just like this, just like that, like we all do, right? And then, boom, it's on my phone, right? And that is magical. That makes me feel like I have superpowers. That makes the technology invisible and the experience indistinguishable from magic. You're holding something that was on your screen in your hand. So for the past 45 minutes or so, I've been talking to you about why I care about experience design. Why I get frustrated by things that don't work or don't work well or aren't easy to use. Why mediocrity infuriates me. Why? Is it a first world problem? Is it an expression of consumerist entitlement? I don't think so. I think it goes deeper than that. You see, the way I see it, we have a tiny amount of time in this world, and then we die. No angels in heaven, no fiery coals of hell, no Elysium, no Valhalla, no fields of Auru, no Summerland, no coming back as a butterfly or a cockroach. Nada. This is all there is. This short life. And if you see things that way, then how much more precious does our time here on earth become? Indeed, it is the most precious thing. So, is it going to kill me if something that should take 10 seconds takes 10 minutes instead? Maybe not. Although it might if it's a medical device or the control panel of an airplane. But yes, it is killing me. It's killing me by wasting that which I have the least of. My time here on earth. And if it was just that, it would be bad enough. But it's more than that. Think of an app, a bus times app that shows you the times of local buses. Surely it's not a matter of life or death if that doesn't work well or if it's unreliable. Then again, it might be a matter of life. What if I have a 5-year-old daughter and I'm going to see her birthday party? I'm going to her birthday party and I miss my bus because this app misbehaves, and I miss the sight of her blowing out her birthday candles. It's an event that's important to both of us, an experience that will go unlived. So maybe it is a matter of life. And maybe it's a matter of death. What if I'm on my way to see my dying grandmother and I miss my bus and I can't spend her final moments with her and I can't tell her that I love her one last time? Maybe it is a matter of death. And we need to realize that a bus schedule app is not just a bus schedule app. It is an object that either enables you to see your daughter's birthday party, or it's an object that prevents you from saying that you love someone for the last time. Objects have value not because of what they are, but because of what they enable us to do. And we, as makers, have a profound responsibility as designers. And you are a designer. We have a profound responsibility, a responsibility to not take for granted the limited time that people have here on earth. A responsibility to make sure that that time is as beautiful, as comfortable, as painless, as empowering, and as delightful as it can be through the experiences that we craft. Because this is all there is, and it's up to us to make it better. Thank you. I just want to say before I go, I'm a very big fan of Creative Commons, and this presentation would not have been possible if people had not shared their photos openly under Creative Commons. And also that I wouldn't be standing here today if my dad, when I was 7 years old, hadn't brought me an IBM XT computer with a basic manual, put it in front of me, and said, go ahead, use it, you can't break it. I proved him wrong later. And this was the first thing I did, 10 print hello, 20 go to 10, and run. And it was hello, 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 hello. And that was magical for me. That lit that initial spark for me. And today, I have the honor of sitting on the board of a social enterprise called Code Club, where we teach kids age 9 to 11 in after-school coding clubs that are led by volunteers, that are free to attend and free for schools. We teach kids how to code to, again, hopefully result in that spark, that initial spark that will hopefully stay with them for their whole lives. So if you want to learn more about that, please find me afterwards, because we always need more volunteers and more schools. And thank you again. You've been a wonderful, wonderful audience. Thank you.